Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the old school tactical East Front game. I did the Russian setup a couple days ago, and we're going to be talking about the German setup. First, though, there was a comment that came in from Daryl Cochran, someone who left a comment that I should put maybe another rifle unit up here with the lieutenant. And the reason was, and it's a good reason, let me just shrink this up a bit, was that when it comes to group fire, if you have an officer here, like I've got this lieutenant, they can take two units that are either in the same hex or in an adjacent hex, and then they can combine their fire onto a target. It costs 2 impulse, so basically you're paying 1 impulse point per unit you're activating. But I mean, it allows you to do like 2 units in a turn instead of always 1 unit back and forth. So I thought, that's probably a good idea. And I thought what I would do is I would take this unit here that was kind of by himself, and I'm going to drag him up here into the stack. I'll put, I wonder if I can just reorganize that a little bit. That way I put the lieutenant there. But that way, as the German forces move forward, then if need be, I might be able to do like a group fire and then have the machine gun, the rifle, go ahead and target something. So we'll go with that. I like that. So I'm going to zoom back out just a little bit. So first of all, just to remind folks here what our play area looks like. If I zoom out too far, I mean, you can see everything, but it's just so small. But here's like your grand strategic view here. Overall, from the map, like if I go all the way out, we're playing in kind of the southwest quadrant of the map. And you can see there's all the unused portion of this map. And what's nice is this is the first mission, and I was looking, there's no hills. Not the first, it's the first mission I'm doing, but there was no hills. So as you can see, there's some hills up here where you could worry about height differences, line of sight blockage, but down here the only terrain that could really block terrain would be like the woods, and then you might get some hindrances from the hedges. So this would be a great game to start out on this map, and then as we move around to some of the different scenarios, we'll be able to use some of the different terrain. So this is just a reminder of where we are and how we're set up. This area right here is going to be the target. That's our crossroads target. I put a defensive unit inside some trenches they dug. Now there is the ability for all of these guys to build trenches and defensive positions, and that's here in the rule book. Let me just snag up the rule book. Now just a real quick word on the rule book. This is version 4. I have version 4.2 on my iPad, and I have it within a reading program on the iPad, so I got to figure out how to get that sent over here. Because the old school tactical website, the rulebook has been down for a while. I can't access it. Maybe I should try a different browser, but I don't know, maybe it's not up right now, and maybe they have a new version coming. So I'm in between versions right now. But if we come and we talk about, I think, see, now I have to remember where I saw that, where they could dig into. No. See, there's the group move rules. It's these little things. It's like, oh, I remember reading that now that I'm on the spot. I'm trying to remember where that was in the book. It never seems to work out for me. I thought it was up here with. Here we go. The markers. There it is. Cover. So all units, including vehicles, may attempt to improve their defensive position even in a structure. Owning player rolls a die. A 5 or 6 is successful, and a cover counter is placed in hex. +1 defense to all units in cover. Cover modifies all of the owning player's units in the hex. A cover counter is removed when the unit using it leaves the hex or are destroyed. Cover and bunker modifiers are used by defending units in an OB strike or close combat. So doesn't look like you get your +1, but what they're saying is, I guess you're just reinforcing your particular spot. So I'm keeping that in mind, because what I could do on my first turn or so is possibly dig in with some of these units. That way, the Germans are going to take a turn, possibly two, before they're really in range of any of these units. So if the Russians can dig in a little bit and get that extra point of defensive cover, in addition to whatever hindrance they may have for hiding behind a hedge. Hedge really doesn't block much. It just makes them a little more difficult to hit. But if I can then turn that into a trench work, that would be more spectacular. So that's where we are with the initial Russian setup. And we did take that suggestion and take a rifle team, stick it up here with the heavy machine gun unit. Also, we need to open the scenario now and take a look at the German setup. So since we're starting on turn 12, the Germans will be setting up along the west map edge, and they may interload it. So you can put infantry on top of the tanks. So I'm going to have like 4 tanks. I can put 4 infantry. The only problem is, I'm always been skeptical about doing that, because when you shoot at the tank, there's always a chance that the riders will get hurt. If you blow up the tank, the riders dismount, but then there's that chance for collateral damage, and we'd have to look that up in the rule book. And it's like, I don't know, but the good thing about that too then is it's almost like a group move. You're moving a couple units, you're moving a tank and an infantry at once. Your impulse isn't all broken and split between having to move everything individually. What I might do is put a couple units on the tanks, couple units on foot. It just kind of mix it up a little bit. I do have 2 leaders. Now it says in here in the book you can't attach leaders to the tanks. The leaders attached to infantry. So that's another thing too then, is where do I put these leaders? So if I'm putting units on tanks, then where are the leaders? The other thing then is, where am I going to put the light machine gun unit? Who's going to carry the bundle? Because your units here can only carry 1 item essentially. So we have some thinking to do. So let's take a look here at the map. Let's just close this for a moment. We're going to zoom in just a little bit here. Oh, that was opposite of zoom in. Alright, let's zoom in on this side of the map. So here's our map edge, and you're going to set up on the map edge. Now, we're not going to have everything, spread out like we had here with the Russians. Now, they do this on purpose. Sometimes when your units are off board, like for example, here at turn 8, I'm going to have some folks come in. There's a good example here, like here's along the map edge. When it says along the map edge, the idea is at the beginning of the turn, before the units come on, you place them on the map edge to indicate where they're going to enter the board, because they don't want you to play out part of the turn, and as the turn plays, change where those troops are coming on. What they're assuming is that those troops just don't magically warp onto the battlefield. They had to come from somewhere. So if I had to place along the eastern map edge, maybe my units were coming on this road. So if I place them here, I'm not going to wait a turn, part of the turn, see things going badly down south, and then just automatically say, oh, I meant to say they were coming in here. So I had to place all my Germans and kind of anticipate where the action may happen and where I plan on thrusting through with my initial forces. And then they're kind of stuck. So I'm going to place them all along the map edge in where I anticipate their best usage will be, which could be along the road. But let's just take a look at their deployment. It says along the west map edge and may interload it. So there's no restriction. Whereas you can see here later on, the reinforcement turns, it says entry hex is here or here. So for now, it's kind of free. So I'm going to have to leave this here because I want my units. So if we take a look here, we've got 4 tanks and then a stack of 4 riflemen. Now let's just place a tank. I'm just going to place them on the board. I probably don't want to put tanks in the woods. And, you know, just because, well, you know, I'm just looking at the woods. Where we come in later, it says H12 or AL26. H12. So I'm going to zoom in for another moment just to see where the reinforcements come, because, you know, part of your game is coordinating with the troops. So it says they're going to come on at H12. Entry hex of H12 or L26. Alright, so if that's H12 is right there. I would put my finger on the map, but as soon as I zoom, okay, there we go. So look here, that's the northern map edge on that road hex, and then the L26 is going to be, oh, down here. Alright, so my troops on turn 8 can either come in the north or the south. So that gives me a couple turns to kind of decide where do I want to push this, you know, initial thrust. I think what we'll do, just because I don't really like the woods, and the Russians are defending, so it's not like they need to leave. Why don't we set up in the south? So we're going to push from the south edge here. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to put them here. And I have another tank right there. Nice. Now I could put, like, I believe I can put 2 tanks in there, because it says like 2 units. So you can put like an infantry and a tank, 2 tanks, 2 infantry, a leader, and a support weapon. And I might do that. Well, it doesn't matter, because once they start moving, I gotta split them up unless they're a group move with the infantry. And it says the only grouping, if I remember right, just to check the rules, the group move. See, here's your stack limit: maximum 2 units, a leader, and support weapons. When firing at a stack, the target unit must be designated by the attacker, so you don't attack the whole stack. Units may not move through a hex, which would cause overstacking. Okay, but I'm thinking when we do the group move, up to 2 units and a leader, the controlling player must declare the group move. Units must start. Moving group can only be attacked once with opportunity fire. Vehicles may not group move. An exception to this is with the assault move, where an adjacent vehicle may join a foot unit and attached leader in the close combat. So I wanted to double check that, because again, you know, kind of helps you think how you want them to move as you're placing them. So if I stack them in a, you know, 2 in a hex, that's great. They can't be attacked by, you know, it's not a, you're attacking the hex and then you roll the attack for everything. So stacking is very friendly, but they don't group move or group fire. I don't think the tanks can group fire either. So let me look at that real quick. Fire groups. Vehicles may not be attacked by a group. Oh, okay. Crude weapon may not be used. Yeah. If units of a group fire. I don't see. It says here under group combat intensive fire. Right there. It does not say participating in the same adjacent hexes. So according to this, looks like your vehicles can group fire. Okay, cool. So as long as they stay adjacent here while we set up and then start moving, he's not this guy's not adjacent to anybody. So let's zoom in and see what unit that is. I know, who knew setting up would be so tough. I almost sometimes prefer when the scenario tells you exactly where to put everybody, like a real, you know, a true historical mission, because this is so nerve-wracking. It's like, where do you go? What do you do? So this is the Panzer IIIH. There's the 4E. I don't want the 4E. Well, he's down here. They're together. So what we got to do now is start rotating. I think we'll go with that. I don't want to have like one unit be be uber fast and move along the road and leave everyone behind. So we're going to go off-road here. And I'm going to rotate him back like so, just for considerations of the front arc firing, because he's going to be covering quite a bit. That's a nice arc, and because he's got those trees, they're going to come around. Alright, and then these guys need to rotate, and then his front arc. I think this is a now his front arc, because they're the southern. See, I put him this way because that puts his front arc. Now this is more consideration for armor and being shot, more so than it is for, I keep saying like the arc of fire. The tanks can shoot 360 degrees. I'm just trying to think based on which hex they're facing and how their front arc is set up for defensive considerations. So this shot would be coming in at possibly his front arc, for example. So like if I draw a line of thread from that dot to that dot, see, it just pops right in there. So even though it's on the side, think of it like the front side and then angles, it's kind of front. I think they're going to work on the rules a little bit more for the arc. Anyway, that's a discussion for another time. But if I'm reading my stuff right, that's front arc. So they should be safe there. See, and because he's already in range when they come in, I don't think that did that pass through the tree? See, let me lay down my thread. So already, quite possibly the buildings might thankfully block line of sight there. He misses the trees. I could probably load up some infantry, and I think that's exactly what we're going to do. Alright, so let's pull up the scenario again. Let's get rid of the line of sight thread, pull the scenario. Yeah, I feel good about that. Let's pull the infantry down. We'll have to assign. Ooh, I lost somebody. They all didn't come down. Is that all 4 of them? Yeah. Let's see. Let's bring the machine gun down, the bundle down. We'll bring the leaders down too. So I'll put all these things on the board. Get rid of the scenario card. Okay. So we're gonna put a rifle unit here. See, because the infantry don't have restrictions on movement like a facing, I think what I'm going to do is go into the module and fiddle with the infantry to where they can't rotate. That way when they're stacked with tanks, I don't get the infantry rotating with the tank counter and then have to open it. Yeah, just kind of a mess. But just make it so that the infantry are fixed. That way no matter how I move things, because I think I did that. Nope. The equipment will rotate too. So I'm thinking I might make that change for my module is things that don't need to rotate, take the rotate option off. Some of that comes by default when you set up your module. So I'll just go in and take that option off. So that might be gone the next time we play. Just that way I don't have to fiddle so much with individual stacks, or just not even worry about it. You can still read everything. Alright, so let's finish placing infantry. Okay, we got tank riders. So these are all on the tanks. They'll at least take one turn of moving forward, then they can dismount. And then there's rules for the mount and dismount. Luckily, when infantry move forward on a vehicle and they dismount, they still got their movement because the vehicle was moving. However, if you take your infantry, mount up onto a vehicle, it takes some of their movement, and then the vehicle moves a distance, moves a ways. They don't get to dismount and continue moving. So we're going to start mounted, move up, and then hopefully they can dismount and maybe move to positions of protection as needed. And then just for now, since you can later group up infantry and they can swap who's carrying what, it doesn't quite matter who has what right away. I mean, I've only got a bundle and a light machine gun to assign, so I'm going to actually put the bundle here, because he's kind of moving up the well, they're still on the southern edge, but he's moving closest to the tank unit. So hopefully if they got close enough, maybe the bundle could be used against some of the infantry, maybe against the tanks. We'll have to look and see. It's only got a 3 firepower against this tank's armor of 3, so that'd be like a 1-1 odds. If you threw it from the front, yeah, might be better against infantry. Alright, and then we'll put the light machine gun. Wow, we're totally far south. Why don't we put the machine gun up here with that group? So that way when they move forward and dismount, I'll have some weaponry to bear. And then the leaders, why don't we attach them to their respective stacks of men and equipment. I might want to bring a guy down here though. Oh, I'm going to leave the captain up here. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to mix that up a little bit. I'm going to put the captain with the machine gun. The reason why is this number here in the circle is their command radius for if they help with like a rally roll and things like that. So because he's only got a command radius of 1, I'm going to bring him down here with that infantry unit. And since he's got a 3, if they all can stick together, then he can initiate maybe a group movement or something when they dismount. So we'll keep him up here so he can help influence everybody. And that's going to be our initial German setup. So I'll zoom out, and that way if anybody wants to chime in on what to do next, because that's what we'll talk about next time we come back. We'll actually start pushing the pieces around. So if you want to see a different setup or you think there should be some changes, let me know. So just to summarize, the Germans, we're going to go ahead and come in from the south. That way when we pull the reinforcements, we'll go ahead and come up from the south, which makes the initial Russian deployment seem pretty bad because we put a lot of stuff up here. But that's what good scouting does. It kind of lets you see what the opponent is doing. Now that doesn't mean they can't move, but that means I could, just depending on how impulses go, could still dig in a little bit, because as they move south, these guys can still fire to the south onto them. And then as I bring in Russian reinforcements, we'll just have to make sure we travel down and reinforce this southern route. So not all is lost. Plus we did put some equipment here on the actual point, because the Germans will have to come around, and then in a way there's just a nice line of defenses they have to fight through. So not all is lost on the initial Russian deployment, and the Germans though are feeling pretty confident they'll just be able to sweep through. So we have here a tank with some riders, then we have a tank, riders with a light machine gun and a captain, a tank with riders and a bundle of grenades. Then we have the Panzer IV down here with a little bit more firepower, and then we have another tank with some rifle riders and a sergeant, and that comprises our main attack force. So if you want to see any changes to the German deployment, let me know. If you're happy with that, then if you're happy, we'll move on and you can start talking either strategy for the Russian player, strategy for the German player, maybe what opening moves you would like to see from both. And then when we come back, we'll also discuss some of those very first opening moves, as far as rolling for impulse points and things like that, We'll draw our luck card. Each player will get one luck card that they can use, so we'll have that set aside. So when you come back, there's still some things to do, and then we'll just carry on. Well, why don't we do that now? You're right. Why not? Okay. Sounds good to me. You talked me into it. Not that anybody said anything, but in my head, you guys said, no, let's set it all up now. So what we're going to do is follow the rule book. So rule book for the play example, we've set up our map. We've already shown the turn tracker set up, and now it says initiative. So at the beginning of each turn, both players roll 2 dice 6 for the initiative. Whoever wins the roll wins the initiative and plays first for the turn, which leads right into the impulse system to see how many impulse points you have. So that's not going to take too much time to do. So let's go ahead and knock that out. So I'm going to roll for the German player first, 2 dice 6. German player rolled a 3 and a 6 for a total of 9 for the initiative. And then the Russian player rolled a 3 and a 5 for an 8. So the German player just barely won out. So the German player will have initiative for the first turn. And I need, that's one thing I didn't notice here on the map now that I think about it. Where's the initiative marker? I've been playing a lot of games lately where you have an initiative token of some sort to help you remember who's got that. Well, how about I just take a German control. So that's what we'll do. Just to remind me that they are going I'll put it down here by the turn track. So for this first turn, Germans have initiative. And then when it's the Russian with the, we'll just swap it out. Perfect. You guys are brilliant. Okay. Impulse points. So we're going to say the top turn tracker here will be for the Russian player, and this bottom track will be for the German player. So we're going to check our number of impulses. Check the scenario card. The German player gets 3 impulse dice. So I'm going to roll 3 dice 6, and boom. 6, 2, 4. So that's 12. Not too bad. So we're going to pull up our impulse marker, which I have one, actually. Well, actually, I have as many as I want. I'll just pull them down. So the German player will start with 12 impulse points. And the Russian player, scenario card says he gets 2 impulse dice to start with. Close the card. He's going to get 11. Wow, so very good rolls for the Russian player. He's not far behind on what he can do. All right. And I think it was good to show this to you guys because as you now look at the map and you see how many impulse points you have, maybe that might help you decide like what would be good to start moving first. Since every movement is an impulse point, group movement, group fires will take 2 impulse points. You can see our initial setups. Now we can start thinking about how we're going to do the opening moves. So I'll end it here, and this gives you a couple days to think about what would be good to see. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great night, and we will get rolling here a little bit later on. Bye.